lecture. Today's lecture will mean, inshallah, about halal, to increase our awareness about halal. And the presenter today is Brother Mohamed Amin. Brother Mohamed Amin, he graduated from Mohamed University. He used to be with us in this masjid for 3.5 years. And we came together in 2013 to Sapporo. And after he finished his PhD in Mohamed University, and actually at this time, maybe until 2016, right? 16. He had a chance to be in the MC of the Sapporo Masjid for 1 year. And after he graduated from Mohamed University, he got a job in Tokyo. 2 jobs, and I think he will introduce himself. Okay, so I need to introduce more. So I just will leave you with Brother Mohamed Amin.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Could you hear me like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, many scenes are coming now in front of my eyes. I'm really, honestly speaking, this place is the best place for me in Japan, and even among many other places, even in my home country, this place is one of the best among them. I owe a lot to many people here and to the place itself. It gave me a lot of strength to continue my life journey. Just when I had a lot of problems, I used to just enter this door and everything is done. So Alhamdulillah, I'm very, very happy to be here. And I'm feeling very responsible to speak in front of you. I had the ownership and the chance to be one of the MC members, as Brother Mohamed said, when I was here in Sapporo from 2013 to 2016. And at that time, there was many dreams that it was almost impossible to achieve, like having new place, new building. Is it possible to buy the nearby one? Is it difficult? Is it expensive? How should we do with this building? A lot of discussions happened at that time, and it was really almost difficult or even impossible to think about any other solutions. And should we find another place far to have huge space, and then we will lose the privilege of having this place just 5 minutes from Sapporo Eki. And mashallah, I'm really surprised. Just this Ramadan, at the beginning of Ramadan, there was a campaign to collect some donations to buy the land, and then mashallah, within 10 or 15 days, I found the announcement that Hokkaido Islamic Society could get the money needed for the land, which is somewhere near here. So everything coming in a very good surprise, of course, and very good news. I'm really appreciating the effort of the MC working now for Hokkaido Islamic Society, because really within 3 or 4 years to have all of those achievements, it was a kind of dream. So I'm really appreciating this. I'm really praying for you to continue and finish it to the end, and have the big building and big center with many facilities, as we dreamed before, with school for children and lessons and everything to be an Islamic center. Inshallah, very soon, as you surprised me with having the land, inshallah will surprise me within this year, hopefully, to have it accomplished all. So, based on this, in my opinion, of course, the final decision is up to the MC committee. One of the most important things to work on, to be self-sufficient and to by yourselves could kindly manage the place and manage the resources to continue doing activities and expanding the activities. So one of the approaches that will be very likely to do to support da'wah and support Islam and let many Japanese know about Muslims is halal certification. This is from one side. And from the other side, for us as Muslims, the main topic today to try to find out together. I will not give you an answer, but I will just try to make you think about it more. Is it necessary or is it not necessary? Because many of us are now may think that there is a lot of fitna coming from something like halal certification, so better to avoid, better to not to include ourselves in it and just try to find the easiest food to find without any complications and eat it. But necessity came. For example, some people could manage their time and prepare the food at home, everything, so they could control. But some other people are for some conditions, are outside the home all the day. So those people, what should they do? Should they just not care about anything and just eat anything in front of their eye, as long as there is no pork, no entire pork inside, so we can eat? Or should we didn't eat at all and starve? Or what should we do? So here, inshallah, I will explain it in more details and let the final answer to you, inshallah. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mohamed, but maybe from many years ago, no one is calling me Mohamed except my wife. So my name is Mohamed, my own name is Mohamed, but many people used to call me Amin. I was born 1984 in Alexandria, Egypt, and then luckily my parents could let me join the Al-Azhar education, since from the primary education, since the before university education, and then alhamdulillah I got the Bachelor of Science in Biology from Al-Azhar University in Egypt, and then the Masters from Al-Azhar University too in Science, and then alhamdulillah I could manage to come here to get the PhD in Natural History Sciences from the Graduate School of Science of Cairo University, and then alhamdulillah I could join directly after my graduation. I worked as food inspector and halal hygiene supervisor at two places parallelly belonging to each other, Machil Hygiene Control Laboratory and Halal Quality Laboratory. And there, maybe before joining this job, I maybe share more or less the same thoughts as you. Is it that necessary to have halal certification or halal mark, or better just to live our life as normal and do not be that strict? But when I joined that place, I learned more and I did a lot of surveillance about the halal situation in Japan and everywhere in the world, and I came out with what I show you now, inshallah. And then from April 2019 until now, I am in charge of the halal auditing at Minori company, Minori group companies, where we are used to do a lot of mass production with large amounts for different kinds of processed food and halal food for both inside Japan and overseas. So today's content will be about what is halal and what is halal certificate. The best thing to decide is this, about anything. Is it good or bad? Is it correct or wrong? Is to find the definition, to define it and then decide. So what is halal, what is halal certificate, and what is halal auditing? What does it mean, the word audit? And is it important or not? And what is the basis for this? Is it something decided or just anyone can do anything? And then what is required to certify products in Japan and generally, and what is the standards for this, and then what are the qualifications needed for people working in halal. So for us, all that the people attending to it as customers, if we know about this, maybe our image about the situation maybe will be changed, either for a new direction you didn't think about, or just you may think that you are okay as you are thinking now. So generally the rule is according to Al-Quran Al-Karim, Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 168. يا أيها الناس كلوا مما في الأرض حلالا طيبا ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. Which means كلوا whatever on earth which is lawful and good and healthy for you, and do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. So remarkably here, it is related to food, not to life, not to attitude, but within the same ayah, it is mentioned that do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. So eating the good food and the lawful food is very important to have a good life, generally. This is a general rule. So it was very simple at the beginning. When life without technology, since the Risala of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and for a long time, people used to just eat things that are very clear that it is halal, and avoid things that is very clear that is haram, and do not mix between them. It was very easy. If some people had some problems or troubles, they used to go to the sheikh or the scholar or the people in the charge of judge or anyway, whatever the title, and go to the people who has knowledge about Islam to ask him, is it possible to do this? As it happened in the time of Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man, rahimahullah, when some people went to him to ask him, is it possible to use pork fertilizers to grow up vegetables and fruits? Then the vegetables and fruits will be halal or not? So it was very easy to explain to the scholar directly and approach him. But what happened later, that recently there is processing, there is industry, there is machines, and machines has a lot of contents, and factories are big, and there is a lot of substances to add to make the food more colorful, long shelf life, looks more nice, looks very similar to each other to make the customer's eye satisfied. So when all of that happened, it was almost impossible to keep it arranged as before, because people are working a lot, so no one has the time to approach the scholar to ask him about every single details, and people would like to finish their work and have more production to sell and gain profit, and gain the satisfaction of the customer. So the situation became very difficult to control. If it will work out just with the simple rule as it happened before, and this rule we have to follow it. So to follow it, we need to do more arrangement, because people, population are getting more larger, and food are getting more detailed, and additives are getting to be much more than before. So the need came to have to know what is halal, because halal is before what is on earth and lawful. But recently, several things must be checked. So generally, halal, maybe for all of us as Muslims, we know it is not for only food and drinks, but anything permissible in our Islam teaching are halal. But here, the easy to judge that it is halal, still halal, no problem. Like fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, fish, and seafood generally are halal. But then frozen food came. So frozen food, what is the problem with frozen food? Frozen food has a lot of preservatives. Some frozen foods are only frozen, so it is okay. But some other frozen foods has a lot of food additives. So that must be checked. Fish and seafood are the same. So if some of us saw halal certified fish, some people are taking it as a joke. Why fish and halal certified? But there is a reason that this fish maybe has some breadcrumb, has some half-cooked things, has some sauces, or any kind of that's the Japanese style shoyu. So everything other than fish must be checked, and then after checking, it is halal certified. So there is a reason for certifying fish in this for this meat. But if it is fresh fish and halal certified, so then it is better to make a joke about it. But in this case, there is a reason for those things. So why there is a reason? We will explain now. So the things that must be checked while judging that food is halal or not in the modern time, the same as before, pork origin ingredients are not allowed for use. But now, many things came from pork. When we see it, it will be difficult for us to judge, is it from pork or not? So we need to know the details. We need to know the product specification. Things like lard, like shortening, like emulsifier, nucazide. So those things are very, if anyone saw it without any label, it will be impossible to know, is it pork or not pork? Is it pork or fish? It is very impossible to know. So the food in processing steps must be checked from the beginning. Are there any ingredients coming from pork? Only pork meat, but anything came from pork. And gelatin has the same. Gelatin is very commonly used in a lot of desserts to give it the consistency. So for this reason also we must check the gelatin, because gelatin is still coming from pork. So we have to check it. If it is coming from pork, so it is not halal. The second thing to check, that other farm animals other than pork, like cow, chicken, any other farm animals, must fulfill the Sharia requirements for slaughtering, for tazkiyah. And this part is also very controversial all everywhere in the world. Very deeply discussed, and no one could reach the answer. Why? Because according to the Islam rules and according to Sharia rules for tazkiyah, that the reason for death must be the knife cutting the neck and approaching the jugular veins and trachea, and one thing more, 2 jugular veins and trachea, and the fourth one, esophagus, yes, thank you very much, yeah. Esophagus, trachea, and the 2 jugular veins. Okay, so those 4 must be cut clearly by knife. And the reason for this must come from this, and blood must gush out from those 4 things. This must be checked. If the blood is not coming for any reason, for clot, or the blood got coagulated after reaching, coming to the air, so that we have some tool to make it easy to come again. So it must be checked. The blood is coming out very fast, in a very fast rate from those 4 places. So there are some tools to support the slaughtering now, because some places are slaughtering like 100 or 200 head per day. So in this case, if they will slaughter by hand, we need 6 persons to control the animal movement and then start slaughtering. But since it is impossible, so some Islamic countries are now starting at halal certification bodies, and here is the most important part, that halal certification bodies must allow some tools to make the animal easy to kill, to reduce the time, and in the same time check that the reason for the animal death is a knife, not the tool. Like there is some kind of tool called stunning, having like air gun close to the animal head and having a hole in the animal head to make the animal a little bit unconscious, so it will be easy to cut the neck without having a lot of people to catch the animal. So in this case, it is permissible to use it, but the halal certification body must check. Some people must check that the reason for animal death is the knife cutting the 4 places, not the stunning. So For this reason, it will be impossible for the producer only to do everything by himself, because the producer is busy with production only. So someone must check this step. The same as the other one, number one before. Then, number 3, that alcohol must not exceed the amount decided by halal standards. And this also part is very controversial, because the rule is if alcohol is inside food or drinks, it must be forbidden to have even 0 amount of alcohol. But recently, when the food industry became more advanced, some alcohol is coming and is used, but for purposes other than directly touching the food. So in this case, there must be people who has the knowledge, the chemical knowledge and the Sharia knowledge, to check, is it within the allowed limits or no? Is it within the allowed purpose of use, the maqsad of using, the purpose of using the alcohol? Is it to get people emotions changed by eating or drinking, or is the purpose to stabilize some structures inside the food? And the alcohol finally is 0 at the final product. So those things must be checked, and there must be standards to judge this. It is not a one person check, but standards must be written and then followed according to this. Number 4, the contact, or the thing called cross-contamination. This means that if we have one restaurant, and this restaurant announcing that they have halal food, maybe they are right, they have halal food, they have halal ingredients, all ingredients are okay, all chicken are halal, everything is fine, but the preparation place is too narrow, and there is a mix of the equipment used between the pork contained food and the halal food. So in this case, even the ingredients are okay, but since the mixing happened at the preparation spot, so the food will turn into non-halal or haram. So to judge this and to decide this and to define the distance between the halal and non-halal things and the storage place of halal and non-halal, it needs also specific knowledge to do it. And then the hygiene requirements, because the verses of Quran said, halalan tayyiban, lawful, allowed, permissible from Allah to eat, and good, healthy, wholesome. So if the food with if any ingredient included in the halal food has already the expiration date, all the food will be not halal, because it may cause health troubles. And anything causing causing problems in our health is haram, naturally, according to our the Sharia very basic rules. So all of those things together must be checked. If only one of them are not fulfilled within single ingredient of any kind of halal food, all of the food we are checking will turn into non-halal. So then, to do this, there is a thing called halal certificate. So halal certificate is to check everything about this, everything we explained now, and then deciding that all of those products are meeting the halal requirements we are having, and we will talk about halal requirements. What is halal requirements? Later we will talk. What is definition of halal requirements? And then, according to this, we will say that, yes, this product is okay, everything is fine, all of the points that must be checked are checked, and everything is fine. So according to this, we will give a halal certificate to this product, to this place, to this service, to state that everything is halal. And for this purpose, there is halal mark. Okay? So what the things are that are halal certified usually is the facilities. First, as we said, tazkiyah, the slaughtering of animal. Then the facilities and farm certificates. That the buildings, factories, food factories. Some factories are all halal, so they have everything is halal inside, so they have all halal certificate. And some factories have some designated areas according to the the manufacturer needs and the product's number. There are some areas halal certified, and it is isolated enough from the non-halal, so it could be certified in this case. And then slaughterhouses. Slaughterhouses must be certified not only for the tazkiyah requirements, but also halal and tayyiba, as we said. So the health requirements, are the animal healthy or not? Are the animal has very serious disease or not? Very serious illness or not? Are the place overall hygiene, overall cleaning conditions are okay or not? Are the people working on the slaughtery, the slaughterman, is he practicing Muslim or not? This is all of those points must be checked. Then the facilities, as we said, classified as halal, and primary products, components, and additives of meat, additives containing any kind of meat, food additives containing shortening, containing emulsifiers, containing anything coming from animal origin must be checked. Is it coming from halal animal or coming from pork? Then the last point is also very controversial and very confusing recently. The very raw ingredients used to produce yogurt, to produce milk, and the gelatin, and any kind of animal fats to just add value to the products like bread. So all of those things must be checked to say that our products are halal or not. So for this purpose, we have halal certificate. So we can have the halal certificate for one cake, for example. It is halal certified, and the ingredients inside also sometimes must be all halal certified. Sometimes must be checked, and if it is halal even without halal mark or it is without halal certificate, should be okay. Okay? So it depends on the detailed check of the components. If it is animal origin, so we have to replace it with, or to have it all coming from halal animal and halal certified. That those ingredients are fulfilling the halal requirements. And meat is not only for the slaughter meat and the cut meat and the meat used for steak, but also for the processed meat, processed food. Because maybe meat is used for sausage, for example, is halal, okay? But the shell using to cover the sausage coming from some animal parts, if it is coming from non-halal animals, so the whole product will be non-halal. So that's why all details must not be missed. If we see that the meat is halal, we must check what about other things within the sausage. Is it all halal? Is the whole sausage is halal certified? Then we can decide and judge. And for this purpose, there is halal certificate needed. To do the halal certification, there is something called halal auditing. Maybe you may hear the word auditing in many fields, not only for halal, not only for food, for accounting, consign. Maybe in Japanese you can find people having companies maybe are familiar with this word. Some people are doing kansa or audit. Audit is usually being done for a lot of fields, for accounting, for the taxation things. There is some person called consign or audit. So for the same purpose, for the same purpose, there is persons, not only one person, people called halal auditors. So the function or the job of auditor is to decide to check that the product or the service or the place with everything inside it is technically competent in auditing halal requirements, in particular food processing field, and the auditor must be appointed by halal certification body. So either on a full-time or a part-time basis, depending on the halal certification body or the halal certification place, but the auditor must be, there is a clear relationship between both sides. Contract based on an audit time basis or full-time basis, depending on what decided, and the contract must be fair enough to secure both sides, to secure that the auditor will not receive any press from or any stress from the place he is working for to affect his decision, And from the other side, from the auditor will also will not give a pressure on the place he's working for to change the place decision of the place policy. So the relationship balance between both sides, between the auditors and the place working on halal certification, must be defined and clarified in a contract basis. So after what we explained previously, so what should we think about halal auditing and certification? Is it important or not important? Is it thing that better to avoid, better not to be engaged, to engage in it directly, or is it something good if we took the enough precautions and enough care? So the answer is really up to everyone's judgment. In our life, if we avoid everything that will bring us trouble, so we may stay at home, right? Because troubles are everywhere. Troubles are everywhere and all the time. And anything, any kind of even very simple work you are doing, there is trouble comes. Trouble is coming from unexpected sources and unexpected time. All the time there is troubles, whatever we are doing. So if we are competent place and competent Muslims and have enough knowledge and we are trusting ourselves and we are doing whatever we are doing in our life for the sake of Allah, so should we worry about the halal work, about engaging in halal work, or should we go on? And if we face troubles, we can again renew our intention, our niyyah, and find ways to overcome those troubles. So the controversial parts which really needs halal certification or auditing are like those things. It is something that very, very difficult for the normal consumer to know. For example, if we are going to buy some food, there is now recently in Japan there is a more detailed labeling rules from April this year. So you will find that some sentences stating that no genetically modified food is included. Or sometimes you will find a check sheet or check table, small check table at the food labeling place, and at the place of genetically modified food you will find circle. So this means that there is genetically modified food here, GMO, genetically modified organism, or genes has been changed of particular ingredient in this food, and we as Muslims we have to check what is the origin of this GMO. So how a normal consumer could judge it while he's checking the label? All consumers have the time capacity and the mind capacity to contact the company. And all consumers will have the enough knowledge and the enough communication way to ask the question and be sure that the other side understands the question and answer it back. It is very, very complicated and very time consuming. So that's why some people on Muslims' behalf who has enough knowledge and enough competence and enough time must do this on behalf of Muslims, and Muslims of course must, or not must, but should trust the people working for this work. Because if they are not trusting the people working for this, if I ask one person to check the GMO or the genetically modified organism inside one product, is it halal or not? And from the beginning I'm not trusting this person, so whatever the answer, I'm not trusting him. So why I'm asking him? So from the beginning, the Muslims also must trust the place. To trust the place because it is something very variable among people, and even from the very old time and from our Prophet ﷺ time, there is good intention is also very important between Muslims, but also to make everything clear will reduce the chance, or will make the chance much less to doubt. So to have this, we must, any people working in halal certification must have halal standards and halal auditing, and the auditing way must be clear for the consumer. So the consumer, if he feels doubt about one person working at that place, but if he is feeling that the this person is working based on a very serious and very detailed rule, so he will trust the place and trust the product and not think about persons. So this also is important, generally speaking. So the basis of halal certification and auditing, because some people think that it is totally away from Islam. For some reasons, for some incidents, they found maybe there is stories about halal pork, something like that. So they think that there is no basis for this. Maybe some wrong judgments and wrong places don't work properly have some problems, but it doesn't mean that all halal places and all people who are working or who will work in halal are having something wrong. Okay? So the basis for this, of course, it is Sharia. This is the first thing. Everything is being done for halal is for the Sharia requirement, for Islam requirement, for Islam rules. This is the first and last and most important thing. What is changing in the modern world, just to make the Sharia in a practical steps, to apply the Sharia rules in 1, 2, 3, to manualize it, to make it manuals, to apply it to restaurant, to apply it to hotel. This is the main thing. But the main thing all the time is Sharia with Quran and Sunnah and Qiyas. This is the pillars of halal world. Then, according to our world now, since the halal certification place will inspect, will check, will ask places for documents, so this place itself must be very organized. Because halal certification place will have inspectors. People are coming to restaurant and asking restaurant, could you show me this? Could you show me this? Could you show me this? Your place is still has some problems with the hygiene, with the cleaning. So could you clean it more? Could you make this space a little bit far from this space? So to say that, you have to be at the beginning yourself. You must be organized person to be able to convince the message you are doing. So for this purpose, there are also some quality management systems must be followed according to for the halal certification body. Of course, having them all from the very beginnings is almost impossible and very difficult to achieve, but to keep them in mind and work according to their guidelines until the places will be able to get it. This should be the purpose. Whatever it will take somehow longer time or shorter time than expected, but from the beginning, the place must be organized to convince others about our services and about that we are inspectors, we are checking, we are auditing. So there is maybe some of us working in the industry field may be aware of those management systems, ISO 9001 and ISO 17065. So this one is given to the places certifying products generally, not only for halal, but generally any places are certifying products, like some very famous certification bodies are certifying the chargers, the laptop chargers. You will find some stamp on it, not halal stamp of course, but a stamp that all the electricity and the sensors and the mechatronics being done there is matching with the Japan and international requirements. So this one is ISO 17065. Parallelly for halal food, because halal certification body is working on products, so halal certification body can work on the same scheme, because it is product with ingredients inside, and these ingredients are fulfilling Sharia requirements. So Sharia requirements is Sharia requirements all the time, but the steps and the way to arrange them can follow the ISO 17065 rules without changing the core of Sharia, of course. Sharia is Sharia. It will not be changed to match ISO. The opposite is happening. Just the Sharia will be stepwise to follow the ISO rules. And then there is some ISO 2020, 22000. And this one is not for to certify place, but to certify people. The people working in auditing, in halal auditing, are doing something related to food safety management. It's not only about Sharia, of course, because halal is halal and tayyib, as we used to say. So it is also must fulfill the hygiene requirements, as we said. So if the person working as auditor in the halal certification body is having this qualification as ISO 22000, so he will be able to convince the place more. So they will know that this person is not coming to force us to do the food for Muslims, but he's also giving us advice about our place to make it better generally, because he is aware of the food safety international rules and food safety, and he's giving us advice to help us to be better, generally speaking, and also to make the halal certification or the halal products better. Then, in some cases, for some very deep industry process, some products needed to be tested at laboratory to find out that if there is any pork or alcohol remains inside it. So in this case, laboratories also are following ISO 17025, and inside the international ISO 17025, there is now something called halal scope, halal testing scope, everywhere in the world. Any laboratory in the world can apply for it and get it. Porcine DNA, pork DNA, and alcohol testing, alcohol remains testing. It is called inside the ISO halal scope. And the same for ISO 1765. Also, there are some parts related to the halal issues. And then the auditing and the management system and the way how to audit, also it is internationally recognized. Whatever the auditor is doing for accounting, for food, for machines, there are rules for auditors. And the auditor's rules are ISO 19011. So, as we said, Sharia is still the base, but to make the Sharia rules in a language easy to understand for everyone, whatever the religion, whatever the country, is the management system. So, what we may think about, we used to say now Sharia is the same everywhere. Sharia is Sharia. Islam teachings about food and drinks are Islam teachings. But is it for halal standards? Is it the same in all Islamic countries, or all countries in general, or it differs? So this slide is to answer this. So for halal standards, each country from the Islamic countries has committee. The governments has committees containing food specialists and Sharia specialists. They have many meetings together, and they discussed about many issues together, and then they came out with the country's halal standards. Because as you know, some countries are following some madhab. Some other countries are following the other madhab, Maliki or Hanafi or Shafi'i or Hanbali, so it depends on the country. And also, together with the madhab opinions about food, the issues emerging in the modern world. So maybe some countries should have the same madhab, but they have some different halal standards, because people ijtihad, people working on the halal rules, came out with different opinions. So standards are using the same basic rule, but because the people, experts inside there have different opinions, so several standards came out. So for Malaysia, there is one big department called Department of Islamic Development, Malaysia. In Malaysian, the abbreviation is JAKIM, and Indonesia, the called BPJPH, and for the Gulf countries, there is something called JAC, or Gulf Accreditation, GAC, or Gulf Accreditation Center, for UAE. There are two places or bodies. They are having halal, their own halal standards. And for Singapore, there is Majlis Ulama, or the Council of Scholars deciding. And So for each country there are several there are standards, and for the standards there are categories of food. There is meat, there is non-meat, there is milk products, there is cosmetics, there is medicines. So each food category, some are the same for everything, but for each food category there's some special details, because of course the industry details are different between different products. So there are categories of food. So it depends on the category of food. Some halal standard details may differ, and it also may differ among countries. And also there are other requirements for each country, like the health requirements. They are separate, and some places are doing it separately, fulfilling the health requirements and the halal requirements. So halal standards, the rule, Islam is one Islam, and the Sharia's rule is one rule. But since there are different opinions, different scholars coming from different schools, different ways of thinking, different food specialists with different opinions, so this came out with different halal standards. Okay? So what about a place having or to have halal certification inside Japan only, not for the purpose of other countries? Only if any place would like to certify the restaurants and the hotels to make for the Muslims coming to Japan, for example. If a Muslim coming from Malaysia and he would like to stay here in Sapporo for 1 week, he's searching for a place to eat. But he will not say, I would like to get my meal from a place certified from my country. It is impossible. In the very natural way of thinking of Muslim, he will just ask, where is the halal food? Right? So to have a place certified locally inside Japan, the halal certification place must have standards, their own standards. Their own standards must also be with the same way. Several people are meeting together and deciding rules. And this committee must not have only Sharia and technical auditor, but also Muslim people owning restaurants. Muslim people used to work in halal, in food generally. They have their opinion, they have their point of view, so they can be engaged also in this committee to decide and to put points and to, because they are the people used to work in food before. So their opinion is also important. So the importance is not only technical or Sharia, but also for the people from the industry. And of course the consumer. Some people should be inside the committee as consumers, thinking as consumer, about the taste, about how the things are looking, about for example, if I'm going to a restaurant and this restaurant has a pork logo outside and there is one halal mark outside. Am I going to eat at the restaurant with the pork logo and halal mark, or what should I say? So those issues must be discussed, and then coming out with the halal standard to follow it. So as long as the place has its own halal standards, so based on the correct opinions and different ijtihad, different opinions coming from many people, so it will go properly. But if the place doesn't have standards and just certifying, receiving requests from anywhere and just going to check, so today they will go to check this place, and next week they will go to check similar place, but since there is no definitions, no rules, maybe the judgment here will be different than the judgment here. So later, the owner of that second place may complain, you make it very easy for this place, but you make it very difficult for me. Why? Because maybe there is no standards. So if the place has standards, so everything can go smoothly. So what is the word halal accreditation? Halal accreditation means that the place working in halal certification is getting approval from an accreditation body or a government body organizing halal work. As we mentioned in those slides, like this, those places are called accreditation bodies because they are having standards for the country, so they can approve the halal certification place that this place is okay to certify products coming to us on our behalf. in Japanese it's called sogo ninsho, mutual recognitions between the halal certification place and those government bodies. This is called accreditation. Okay? So the accreditation, if we are working, because this part is somehow misunderstood, if we are working for the purpose of supporting Hokkaido visitors with halal food, so we don't need to get accreditation from anywhere outside. It has no meaning because we are working just for Japan. For Japan, Japanese government, there is no accreditation, halal accreditation place for Japanese government. To the moment, there is no halal certification accreditation place. The Japanese government is not working on this now. They may work on it in the future, but to the moment, we don't, or any certification body, don't need to ask the permission of halal, of Japanese government to work on halal. But maybe they ask the Japanese government for other legal things, as organization, as a company, as a religious organization, as NPO. They must also follow the requirements of generally of the halal, of the Japanese government. But there is no halal requirements for the Japanese government to follow to the moment. So it is up to the place working on halal to decide their own standards and have a firm structure of auditors, people working in industry, consumers, Sharia consultants, to decide those standards based on the market situation and based on the necessity rules and based on a lot of things. So then we may think about what are the qualifications needed for staff working, because some issues and debates are coming about the people working. Do they are really Muslims, those people, or are they really saying what they are doing, or something like that? So to avoid all of those troubles and doubts coming between different people, there are standards, there are requirements. So maybe we could understand until now that there are two kinds of checkers, auditors in the halal certification place: the Sharia auditor and the technical auditor. Of course, both of them must be Muslims to know Islam rules. But the Sharia auditor has more in-depth details about the Sharia, all the Sharia rules, and is a person working effectively on da'wah and giving lessons in Islam to different people, and has the good communication skills and has the enough study, either under supervision of sheikh, of scholar, or in a university and getting a university degree. So this is a Sharia stuff requirement, or knowledge, or experience needed. Then the technical auditor. Technical auditor must have the market language. What is hygiene? What is food hygiene? What is the hygiene requirements needed? What are the Japanese food law requirements needed? This is called the technical auditor. So minimally, the halal certification body must have Sharia auditor and technical auditor, and not only one, of course, but several people, because the decision making must be shared decision, not one person decision, not two person decision, but many people must work for the halal certification place or body to decide to give the final decision. But the people going to field to check the place, at least one Sharia auditor and one technical auditor. The Sharia auditor is covering the Islam rules. He knew a lot about all Islam rules. And the technical auditor is, of course, a Muslim, practicing Muslim, so he or she is knowing about the rules. And the technical auditor, he has something plus, that he knows about the details, the technical details. Because maybe the Sharia auditor is asking the technical auditor, for example, to ask the restaurant to put a wall between two places in the restaurant to prevent mixing of halal and non-halal food. So the technical auditor must apply what the Sharia auditor is saying. But the technical auditor has some technical specification for this wall. Because if some material, if the roll has a melting nature, if the material of the wall is easy to melt in the hot temperature, so the melting material will come on food and it will cause food poisoning. And it is also not good for people health and for halal requirement. So he must think about how to apply the Sharia request in a way that are matching the food hygiene rule of the country and the international food hygiene rule. So this rule, there must be, of course, a good relationship and good communication between all the people working, and especially between the person in charge of Sharia and the person in charge of technical auditing. Because the technical auditor knows a lot of technical details, so he must be honest to say all the technical technical details to the Sharia auditor, and make sure that he really understands about it, and in a good language and an easy to understand language, to give him the full image to let him decide about some issue. So this is the main rules and main issues that are coming out with halal certification. I hope that everyone could understand it. My personal opinion, not to force anyone to follow, that it is good for mosques, for Islamic societies to work on halal, because they are the best place to work on it. No one is better than them to work on the halal certification, because they have the qualified people, the trusted people, they are trusted by Muslim people. So it is bringing a lot of good advantages to the place and to the Muslim community, and which is one of the core functions of any Islamic society. My talk is finished now, and I would like to receive any kind of questions from you, and thank you very much for your listening and understanding. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
If you like to say, if you tired, you can just stay. Maybe you can stay, but we can discuss now.
Give some more Amin.
Yes.
Take this.
Okay.
انا مكسور حرام عليك هتخليك كذا جاي لك وبس مكسور
اجري انا. So brother Mohamed, I have one question.
بقى خليش بس okay. Listen to.
ايش بعد؟
لا ما ينفعش.
Yes, bro.
So from your experience also, I went to many places. Sometimes we found Muslim friendly, and the people, I don't know, they ignore it or they don't know about the halal food. For example, they say this is Muslim friendly,
Yes.
and ask everyone you can eat.
Yeah.
Although in my expectations that this is only Muslim friendly from their point of view, that not contain alcohol or pork.
Yeah.
Did you face something like this and confirm this is okay or not okay?
Yeah, it is very difficult part, because nothing to force them to do it. So not many, some places are doing, as you kindly said, they are just according to their, they are working, which is not correct. It is happening.
Yeah, yeah.
It is happening. And they, for example, many famous restaurants, they are writing that this product is halal, but inside the ingredients are halal. But they are, for frying chicken, for example, they are mixing everything together.
Yeah, yeah.
And no one knew. So it is a kind of misleading, of course, and it is not preferred. So that's why the halal certification place must be there, because if there is halal certification is approving them, so the halal certification way of working is to hire one person inside it, from the workers, from the staff of the restaurant, to be the halal supervisor, the halal person in charge. And this person is responsible to keep the halal rules going. Yeah. So this will, by this way, we will avoid having such kind of problems. But of course, it is happening. But how to solve it is very difficult because as consumer, if we go to tell them things, maybe they will say, okay, thank you very much for the suggestion, and maybe they will not do, or maybe they will do, maybe they will work on it and do, maybe not. Maybe they will take the points only mentioned by the customer and apply it, but not apply everything. Yeah, so it is somehow difficult. But that's why announcing and letting everyone know that there is one place here, for example, is doing halal certification is important. Because if they are doing it by themselves, Japanese people naturally like to follow rules. So if they know that there is one place are deciding rules for them, they will be very happy and they will naturally come to correct their position if they have something wrong, if they couldn't understand. And surprisingly, some of them really could understand very well without any guidance. But announcing that there is one place is doing halal certification, thank you very much, will make, but this one maybe will be much easier to put. Just my hand will be broken. So this one is better. So just announcing that we are doing it will encourage a lot of people who they really know that they have something wrong in their operation to come to ask and get it corrected. So, and the very important thing is how to attract the people to come. Because if one place came and asked about it and find the answer very tough or very aggressive, maybe they will not come again. So how to take it smoothly and gently until everything is achieved is also very important to consider.
Okay, Dr. Mohammed, now if let's say one Hindu restaurant is saying we have halal food, and they're putting big halal mark.
Yes.
And we have halal certification from HRS.
Okay.
Do we have any right to force them to take our certification or to take away their halal mark because they are not following the halal procedures properly as a religious body here, or we don't have this right to tell them you cannot put this halal mark because you are not following?
Yeah, according to the Japanese rules, no,
cannot.
the mosque cannot, yeah. But if you already certified this place once, for example, and if you already certified this, and you have a contract between us and they didn't follow one contract item point, so you can do a lot of things. But for now situation, it is a kind of friendly advice. So they can follow
nothing
more. Because there is nothing called until now halal law for the Japanese law inside Food Sanitation Act, for example, halal law inside it. No, nothing until now. But since now in countries like South Korea, doing wrong things related to halal may bring to prison. Now may bring some people to get punished. So the issue is becoming more important, more serious. And the Japanese government is hearing now that there is many countries around are punishing the people not following halal rules if they say they are following and they are not following. So time by time, I think soon there is something will be mentioned inside the Japanese law about halal food and following the halal rules.
But now we cannot go to court and say complain from a restaurant that they are not following.
No, now we can't. According to my
I have a question. I'm curious about, like, is there any difference between the standards of the countries? Like, standards in Malaysia is different from the standards in Indonesia, and if I want to import from like halal goods from Indonesia to United Arab Emirates, like, can the United Arab Emirates say that their halal standard, Indonesia halal standard, does not match our halal standards? Like this kind of issue.
Yeah, this is the case now. There are differences. It is not very crucial differences, but it is differences in the steps, in the details, some details.
Can you give example?
Yes, I
It's
can.
because I think it's very small issues, very tiny issues.
Very, very tiny, very
Yeah.
tiny. It is not that huge. Okay, so let's think about one example.
About storage, for example, about tools, about
Yeah.
for animal using the stunning. Maybe some they didn't allow.
Yes, yes, yeah. This is yeah, good point. Generally speaking, in all Islamic countries, stunning is not preferred. It is not the top thing to do. But some countries are allowing and some are not. The countries are allowing, they have requirements for the stunning. If the stunning is causing the animal to die, so it is not halal. If it is causing the animal to die, it is halal. If it is causing the animal not to die, it is halal. If it is causing the death, it will be not halal. So some countries, for example, like Saudi Arabia, they are not allowing stunning, or they have some requirement for stunning. If they check it and they couldn't find it properly, they will say that this place are not allowed to stun, only by slaughter by hand, for example. But other countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, they are allowing stunning, but the stunning must be following some rules. So if you are exporting meat from Indonesia to UAE, both countries are Islamic countries, but maybe UAE will refuse the meat because they will say that this meat are stunned, stunning has been used, and we didn't allow this place to do stunning. We say it is okay to have it hand slaughtered, something like that. Other also very detailed example that for document checking. Some Indonesian, for example, I don't like to mention countries, but some countries are asking to have very, very detailed document check. Okay? Some other countries, they said, it depends. If you have just a certificate showing that nothing here is halal, is pork or alcohol content, so it will be okay. For example, for medicines, some countries are just saying it is enough to give us any certificate showing that this product does not contain alcohol and doesn't contain pork, and submit the test results, lab test results, and that's all. But some other countries, they say you have to do this, plus a lot of document traceability checking, that this product is detailed ingredients of that, and there is no alcohol in the process at all has been used, and there is no alcohol has been used in the whole place, all the factory, not only that line producing the place. So those details, rules are the same, but the differences are coming from this. There is one incident happened that, dates, tamr, dates, the palm dates, yeah.
Yes.
Dates must be, no problem. Some dates has been exported from UAE to Malaysia, I think, or Indonesia, and the batch has been refused because there is no halal mark. Because according to that country standards, all products must be halal certified. Because there is a reason for this. What is the reason? The food chain. They are thinking about it from food chain concept. It's not about that, okay, it is dates and it's coming from the tree, so it is halal, but they think about transportation, storage, all the food chain. What is happening after we get it from the tree, what happened later, everything, the whole food chain must be halal. So that's why they refuse it.
Yeah, in Malaysia, even water.
They have reason for this, and when the Malaysian accreditation body has been established, the JACI, it was around the 80s, 80 something. At that time, in Malaysia, the community structure it is not 100% Muslim country. There is other religions. So there was some pork farms at that time, and maybe some pollution happened near a river from coming from a pork farm. So when they started to do the halal standards and they analyzed some water, they found some pork remains, something like that. So for this reason, this issue came out. Egg are halal certified some places. Eggs.
Why?
Eggs.
Why is egg?
Yeah, the reason is there is a religious reason. The religious reason is what that according to some detailed madhab opinion, food from the very beginning, everything must be halal. So if the chicken giving us the egg has been fed with non-halal feed,
The food of the chicken.
the food of the chicken has some problem, so the egg also will not be halal. So in this case,
This many scholars they say.
many scholars they say
it's haram. Because if the chicken is eating blood, if
Sure.
chicken is eating something like dead something dead, they mix, in the
sure, the
so
powders,
then the
supplement.
then the
So the
It should not be
main
taken.
reason for making the egg is coming from non-halal source. So it is clear that it's non-halal. But when we generally say that to people, why egg is halal certified? So it is the first question, why egg?
Well, this is for the chicken, right?
Yes.
What about if the Japanese farms, they are feeding the cows and other animals with alcohol and other...
Yeah.
What happens to the meat?
Good question. So the standards organization of Islamic countries, different Islamic countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Indonesia, they said if it is like that, so you can change the food of the animal before slaughtering. Some of them said according to the animal life cycle, because some cows can stay alive for 10 years, some other cows for 15, something like that. So of course, brother Yasser knows much better than me. Yeah. So depending on the cow's strain, the cow has age, the lifespan. So there is some calculation being done to decide by how much time we should keep the animal without the non-halal food and then slaughter it. So for example, if the animal is drinking beer, for example, if the animal is drinking beer for all the life of the animal is filled with beer, so if the lifetime of the animal is 6 years, so we can stop feeding the animal with beer the last 3 years before 3 months before slaughtering, and then we can so the blood circulation all over the body will get pure according to from any non-halal resource, and then it is 40 days. For fish, for example, fish has very short life. So for fish, you can, according to the opinions, you can stop the non-halal feed for fish 1 or 2 days before. Of course, not for sea fish, for farm fish.
Of course,
sea fish. Because of course,
stable water.
the farm fish. There is now fish farms all over the world, so you are controlling the food. So if there is one non-halal food inside, so because the fish lifetime is short usually, so the last 2 or 3 days before picking up the fish, you can stop feeding them with this non-halal thing, and it will be halal. So it depends on the animal life span and the standards, because some other standards said just 1 day before the slaughtering, you can stop the non-halal, change all the non-halal feed to halal feed, and it will be okay. So there are very different opinions. The opinion of 3 months or 6 months opinion is based on the biology of the blood circulation. If the old blood circulates several times purely, so it should be okay. They said that when they consulted the food specialist. Other food specialists said we only care about the food inside the stomach while slaughtering, so better to stop feeding it to the non-halal 3 or 4 days before that's totally 1 day or whatever. So it depends. And yeah, it is somehow difficult, even for the feed itself, because some Japanese, it is said that some Japanese cows are fed with beer, but actually it's not 100% beer. It is not the beer as the convenience. No, it is coming from some filtration process of the beer production. So it is a kind of paste, and this paste sometimes contain alcohol, sometimes don't contain alcohol. So this should be the question. What should we do for it? Is it, if it is without any alcohol, is it halal to use even until the animal slaughtering? Or because it is coming from beer, even the beer name is mentioned, so it should be 100% halal. So this is also very debated part about the halal slaughtering and the feed.
Maybe this will be the last question of Brother Arif. Okay.
How many organizations have the authority to give the halal certificate here in Japan?
Authority?
Or how many organizations?
Certification bodies.
Too many, because yeah.
I know some organization is okay, but some personally, only one man is issuing the certificate without checking anything.
Yeah.
We can stop him or not? Because some I know personally. I am slaughtering for Dubai and for global Japan halal here in Black Wagyu. So I know very well. And some person is issuing the certificate without they don't have authority, and they not proper implement Islamic rule himself. So how we can
Yes, is it possible for anyone even?
It depends on the purpose. Are you going to issue the certificate for the purpose of exporting to other countries or only inside Japan?
No, other countries they have own rule.
Sure.
I know Malaysia and I'm for Gulf. Starting for Gulf. So they have a lot of rules, about 46 rules for each time. But here in many products they have certificated this restaurant. Your restaurant is halal.
Restaurant, for example.
But they are serving nobody.
This is of course not
so
good.
Why you are not making some rule in the future?
Sure, but we as people, we are foreign, right? We are not Japanese. So to have this power to change the decision making and make it forbidden by law, it needs a lot of steps, and we need to have a power in the Japanese parliament or something like that to have halal law. If there is halal law, nothing of this will happen, because there will be specific requirements. As you said, for UAE, there is 50 requirements to do. So for Japan, for inside Japan, there is nothing.
So have, but not
So some people are not doing it properly. But generally speaking, from my experience, Japanese customers themselves, by time, they didn't like this style. They prefer to work properly by themselves. So from their inside, they will search for the serious place to work with. Yeah, maybe they will like this one at the beginning, but by time they will feel meaningless. One person is sitting at home and giving me a certificate, sending by email. So it is not, it doesn't make, and taking money. By time, Japanese people generally they didn't like this. They like to follow a rule. So by themselves they stop. And hopefully, if there is a law by government, so everything will be legalized much better.
About the staining, before it was by the little slug, like wood. But nowadays, after the UA team, many teams came here in Japan and in Hokkaido, not in Hokkaido. They see that they are not there, say not allowed this kind of staining. And after that, there is one gun available in Australia. They don't do air gun. They are not air gun, not breaking the bone. So you can know, and just only 10 or 15 seconds, the animal is unconscious. So that we can start him. That can is a little bit expensive.
Very
about
expensive.
5 million. So we are using this one.
So this is the best of course.
This is a law, but not breaking the bone.
And it has a meter, right? It has something to measure.
Yeah, of course, it must be. Then the air pressure.
Yeah, air pressure.
Yes, sir.
Because they have requirements for the air pressure must be within some limit.
Pressure is high.
Thank you very much for joining today's lecture, and unfortunately we should stop the lecture now as Isha time is past from 5 minutes. Thank you very much for Dr. Baza Mohamed Amin for giving us this time, and Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for all attendance. Inshallah after Isha, inshallah we have dinner upstairs, inshallah. Yes, but Isha is 8:30, brother.
No problem.
No.
If no one comes, then we
No,
can-
but
Food first, Imam.
After Isha, inshallah. After Isha, inshallah.